Hey, what is up, everybody? This is Stevie Breach coming to you here today. Last night, I turned on the WWE Network to check out one of my favorite wrestling podcasts. I don't know how they got the okay to do this, but it happened. It's on there. They're going to be running for, I believe, 10 to 12 weeks. They're going to be running episodes. I'm guessing that they're going to get loaded up every Wednesday on the WWE Network. Something else to wrestle with. Bruce Prichard returns to the WWE. They have all of their... from watching the show, I can honestly tell you that this is a normal show that they would run on MLW. That would download on Fridays. Nothing has really changed. Bruce still does the impressions of Vince, Dusty, Vince Russo. Basically, all the cast of characters are there. Basically, Conrad doesn't ask any different questions that he would ask. They cuss, they swear, they talk about rumor and innuendo. They bring up Dave Meltzer. They talk about the Wrestling Observer podcast. They talk about the Wrestling Observer newsletter. They talk about everything that is there. This basically is the normal show that would run on MLW that you would listen to on your phone or on your iPod or however you listen to podcasts these days. I don't know how they got the okay to do this. That's the only thing that I'm thinking of. This show was about WrestleMania 14. I can honestly understand why they chose to talk about this topic. Something to wrestle with is a podcast. If you've been under a rock, like Conrad said at the beginning, this has been running for about 2 years. They've talked about a lot of topics there is in wrestling. They've covered pay-per-view shows. They've talked about times in wrestling. They've talked about episodes of Monday Night Raw. They've talked about episodes of Saturday Night's Main Event. They've talked about just wrestlers' careers, moments when wrestlers come into a company. They've covered entire feuds like the Mega Powers. They've talked about everything that there is in wrestling I can think of, and there's probably still a ton that they have to talk about. I can honestly tell you that, this topic, they talked about Shawn Michaels, they talked about Mike Tyson, they talked about Stone Cold Steve Austin. This episode, it's basically when WWF was climbing the mountaintop to get over WCW. I believe the night after WrestleMania 14 is, when they did the whole gimmick with DX coming back together. Shawn was no longer there. X-Pac comes back to the company. New Age Outlaws join. They wrestle in the cage against Terry Funk and they tie him up. And I think that is the first episode of Raw where they take over the ratings and they never look back. So that's a hot time there is in the Attitude Era for wrestling. But to me, as a Something to Wrestle fan, I felt like I actually went into the archives over at MLW and I was looking through all the old shows to see if they've ever done WrestleMania 14 before, because I felt like I've heard them talk about, Mike Tyson coming in, maybe going to WCW if he didn't bite Evander Holyfield's ear. I felt like we've talked about Shawn Michaels leaving the company. I felt like, we've talked about that whole press conference for WrestleMania, where basically they had like the block party where, tons more fans showed up. They thought they were going to. Somebody threw a battery. It hit Shawn Michaels in the head. He took off. Basically Triple H was able to show how much of a team player he was. Nobody missed a beat. That, press conference went on almost as if Shawn Michaels was there. And, a guy who wasn't even involved in the match was basically running everything. Almost making it look like he was going to be having the match against Steve Austin at WrestleMania. I felt like they've talked about just about all of that stuff that went along with it, 1,000 times. I enjoy the fact that they were able to get the podcast on the network. I think that's cool. Bruce and Conrad deserve every dollar that they can make. They deserve to sell every shirt they can make. I, as a fan, I feel guilty that it's been going on for 2 years and I've never bought a shirt. There's the Tony Schiavone shirt from Conrad's other show that I've been wanting to buy forever. The Bill's Glass Bottom Boat Tour that I've never pulled the trigger on. But WrestleMania 14 just seemed like something that I felt like they've talked about for 1,000 times, but it is fun to actually sit here on the couch, look up on the TV, and see Bruce's face as he sings With My Baby Tonight. Probably the one reason why Jeff Jarrett got put in to the Hall of Fame this year. But I can honestly say that even though some of the stories I felt like I had heard before, seeing them, basically all put together, them talking about, if Owen Hart was sort of put in a bad spot, because when, all the Harts, when Bret Hart, when Davey Boy Smith, when Jim the Anvil Neidhart left to go to WCW, Vince didn't want Owen to go, promised that Owen was going to be the number one guy, and, because of the way the cards fell, Owen didn't get the match against Shawn Michaels at D-Generation X, even though that was rumored. The next month, they end up doing the Hell in the Cell, which is Shawn versus Taker. Then we have the 10-man tag coming out of that. I believe that's Canadian Stampede. From there we go to, I guess that's WrestleMania time. Or maybe that's not Canadian Stampede. Maybe that's the whole match where Shawn's not able to wrestle, so they end up putting Savio Vega on the heel team. And so Owen, even though he's promised to be one of the main guys in the company, is never able to move into there. We talk about, Sable's rise on this show is basically when it's Mark Merrill against Sable going up against Goldust and Luna Vachon. Sable at this time had the world eating out of the palm of their hands. We talk about, Cactus Jack and Chainsaw Charlie with the whole dumpster match going against the Outlaws. We talk about the Jack and Charlie getting shoved off of the stage in the dumpster. These are all stories that we've talked about 1,000 times. Undertaker and Kane, and then of course Steve Austin and Shawn Michaels in the main event. I'm really looking forward to seeing what the next episode of Something Else to Wrestle With. I don't know if maybe there's a poll that I'm missing out on, or maybe whoever the producers are from WWE Network are asking them to talk about certain topics. Hopefully, we just came out of WrestleMania season. We just did a lot of WrestleMania episodes on Something to Wrestle With that we listen to in podcast form. Hopefully, they can sort of follow along with what is going on. That's something that I like about, the way Conrad either picks the shows or picks the polls, is that we follow along with anniversaries. We follow along with pay-per-view themes that are going on right now. If we were in the month of August, we would be looking at, episodes that focus around SummerSlam, or if we were in the summer, we would be looking at, episodes of the Great American Bash that Conrad would be picking to talk about with Tony Schiavone on what happened when Monday, or yeah, that's right. And of course, the Bischoff show is going to be starting off. So Conrad Thompson has a lot on his plate going on right now. Bruce Prichard is somebody that I really wish, if Sacramento could pull a WWE pay-per-view. I know that we just got the beautiful Golden One Center. We had No Mercy a few years ago. Of course, that was the one that was highlighted by John Cena, Dean Ambrose, and AJ Styles wrestling in the opening of the pay-per-view because WWE was scared that people were not going to watch because of the presidential debate. What a joke that was. But it ends up being that Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt main evented that show. And I ended up getting there by the time that match happened, so that was fun. So we'll see what happens down the road. But I'm really looking forward to seeing more episodes. But this show, to me, almost felt like it was a rerun. And I don't want to be saying anything bad about the show. I don't pay anything for what happened with it as a podcast. Honestly, I subscribe to the network for, the pay-per-views and things like that to stay up to date. So I got my money's worth. Don't think that I'm saying that I got ripped off. If I had $20 in my pocket, I'd buy a shirt to give Bruce and Conrad their due diligence. They deserve everything in the world. They put on a great show each and every week. But I'm looking forward to seeing more from these guys on the WWE Network.